Superhero movies have existed as a genre since at least Richard Donner's Superman the movie nearly 45 years ago. Even so, it feels like our modern understanding of the superhero flick didn't come of age until 2008. That was the year of The Dark Knight, Iron Man, and the MCU. The industry would never be the same. Over the years, capes and cowls have graduated from the fitful highs and lows of the mid-2000s to near total market domination by the end of the last decade. And for that reason, everyone has their favorites. So we polled our entire staff and thousands of readers to determine the best superhero movies of the last 15 years. This 15th anniversary video series is powered by our partners at Plex. Wonder Woman. When Gal Gadot's Diana finally throws away the constraints of man and crosses a literal no-man's land battlefield in World War I, it's like watching a star being born and a classic hero claiming a movie moment worthy of her legendary status. Working from the then already crumbling ruins of the DCEU, Patty Jenkins found something elemental and classically grand in her origin story, which at times played as much like a 1940s war melodrama and adventure flick as it did a modern IP movie. She and Gadot also embraced the femininity of their eponymous character, savoring the power of compassion and empathy as opposed to only action and violence. Although there's plenty of that too, and rarely has it looked better than when Gadot's Diana and Chris Pine's Steve Trevor empty out the German forces of an occupied town. The Avengers. When Marvel Studios president Kevin Feige hinted back in 2006 that the studio's collection of characters and proposed movies could very well lead to the first live-action on-screen appearance of Earth's mightiest heroes, aka the Avengers, no one, not even Feige, was sure it would happen. Make a bunch of movies about some B-listers and then bring them together in their own adventure? Sure, keep dreaming. 6 years and $1.5 billion at the box office later, Feige's dream came true. Robert Downey Jr. already is a fan favorite in the Iron Man role, plus Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner, and Mark Ruffalo establishing themselves in the public eye as the rest of the team. Marvel pulled it off in stylish, thrilling, you-had-to-be-there fashion. The Marvel Cinematic Universe truly came into its own and made tentpole filmmaking exciting again. X-Men First Class. Before the MCU or the Avengers, there was the X-Men, Marvel's once most popular team and the first franchise to transfer such a concept to screen. X-Men First Class might be the best of that series, which even in 2011 was looking a little removed from the modern superhero movie zeitgeist. Unlike certain other period-set superhero movies, Vaughn embraced his 60s aesthetic and tone by channeling the go-go Bond mania energy of this setting, all while providing the best cinematic representation of Charles Xavier and Magneto's frenemy relationship. There are other great X-Men movies, including the follow-up Days of Future Past, but First Class really deserves its top marks. Spider-Man No Way Home. When the Avengers hit the big screen in 2012, it felt like the geekiest of dreams coming to fruition. Here was a mashup of some of the biggest comic book characters of the past 5 decades sharing the silver screen together. However, no comic book movie moment has felt more surreal than seeing 3 Spider-Men ostensibly recreate the Spider-Man pointing meme. Spider-Man No Way Home is simultaneously a celebration of the character's history on the big screen, an unprecedented truce between 2 enormous Hollywood studios, a wild embrace of comic books' multiverse approach, and a potentially fitting conclusion for Tom Holland's interpretation of the character. The fact that it pulls off one of the biggest movie spectacles of the past 20 years, pairing Holland's Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, and Andrew Garfield's past iterations of the character, and also competently tells a full emotional story about Holland's Peter Parker coming of age, is a magic trick that only Doctor Strange could be capable of handling. Guardians of the Galaxy. This was the MCU's first major risk post-Avengers. Could they take a group of C-list comic book characters and still make bank at the box office? With James Gunn at the helm, the answer was a resounding yes. It didn't matter that audiences weren't familiar with Peter Quill, or that they were asked to buy in on the friendship between a talking raccoon and a talking tree. As long as the characters were given inner lives, with vulnerabilities and flaws that people could relate to, folks would follow them to the farthest corner of the universe, taking the scope of Star Wars, the team-up aspect of the Dirty Dozen, and injecting it with its own twisted humor. Gunn was able to cement the Guardians as a fresh franchise within the sprawling MCU. Guardians of the Galaxy was the film that proved that the MCU could tweak the formula and that audiences would follow. We arguably don't get time heists, multiverses, or Eternals without Gunn daring to be different. Captain America: The Winter Soldier. The Marvel Cinematic Universe learned fairly early on that it couldn't just saturate the marketplace with carbon copy superhero origin stories forever. The first indication that the studio was prepared to do something different came in the form of Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Every bit a paranoid political thriller as it is a superhero film, this first Avengers sequel put Steve Rogers in the center of a grand socio-political conspiracy generating right from S.H.I.E.L.D.'s dark heart. Chris Evans is once again superb as Cap, but the Winter Soldier understands he works best as a team player, with Scarlett Johansson's Natasha Romanoff, Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury, Sebastian Stan's Bucky Barnes, and even a baddie played by Robert freaking Redford, filling out a wonderful ensemble cast. The Batman. Who needs another Batman movie, let alone yet another movie set in the early days of the Dark Knight's career, right? Well, with Matt Reeves at the helm, it turns out that we all needed exactly that. For as much as the Batman tries to delve into the unpleasant psychological realities of Bruce Wayne's existence and treats Gotham as the ultimate city that can't be saved, it also embraces all of the colorful, weird aspects of the character's DC comic roots in unexpected and unabashed ways. Boasting the kind of all-star cast you might associate with a Hollywood epic of days gone by, and a neo-noir vibe that wouldn't have been out of place in the 1970s, the Batman still manages to find room for some genuinely eye-popping action and a superheroic heart underneath its Kevlar armor and dark eye makeup. Bring on the sequels! Captain America: Civil War. When Francis Coppola made The Godfather Part 2, he said his objective was to take the Corleone family at the height of its power and tear it down. With the Avengers at a somewhat wobbly peak of their own powers and profile in the MCU, that's seemingly what Marvel Studios also aimed to do with Captain America: Civil War. Rip them apart to shreds and raise the stakes for what was to come. Directors Anthony and Joe Russo created a spectacle that was essentially Avengers 2.5 in all but name. Somehow, they and writers Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely managed to weave together a complicated plot featuring a dozen characters, plus the introduction of Spider-Man and Black Panther. Team Cap versus Team Iron Man was as thrilling as it gets, and the more personal climax, Steve versus Tony, was so compelling because we don't want to see these guys fight, yet they are almost helpless to stop it. Civil War is top-tier Marvel because it shows our heroes at their most vulnerable and yet still trying to do what's right. Black Panther. For all the ways in which Marvel Studios has broken new ground, there is perhaps no better and more truly paradigm-shifting example of that than Ryan Coogler's Black Panther. The movie firmly brought to the superhero genre and tentpole-style movies in general into the 21st century by breaking the boundaries of race both in front of and behind the camera, and giving a new, unconditional hero to millions of fans who could at last see themselves represented on the biggest screen. The late Chadwick Boseman established himself so well as T'Challa with his debut appearance in Civil War, and then leading this film, that Marvel has, for now, rejected the idea of even recasting the role. But Michael B. Jordan's Killmonger was the other part of the equation, presenting a righteous, multi-layered antagonist whose aims were just, even if his means were twisted. With geopolitics, Afrofuturism, and a deep dive into black culture all part of the mix, Black Panther was an eye-opening, wondrous glimpse into what could be when films are open to the world around them. Avengers Infinity War. Avengers Infinity War was an epic in every sense of the word. A cosmos-spanning saga with dazzling scope, a massive cast, a glorious space opera design, and an elegantly written story in which the stakes were clearly laid out and truly momentous. Making the villain of the piece, Thanos, into the protagonist was a brilliant conceit, but it was also affecting to see the heroes we had come to know and love over the previous decade put to their greatest test yet, and fail. All the little character arcs, such as Thor's journey from grief and defeat to nobility and rage, the way Doctor Strange and Tony Stark's mutual contempt turned into respect and friendship, Wanda and Vision's sacrifice added emotion and resonance to a film that could have been a train wreck. As with the Avengers 6 years earlier, no one imagined that all the strands of the MCU's Infinity Saga could come together so masterfully. But they did. Logan. Hugh Jackman spent 17 years trying to make a Wolverine movie as meaningful as the character was to him. Logan, an elegiac swan song for a great star and a great star performance in the Unforgiven mold, was finally able to indulge in the grisly side of its anti-hero's claws. As much a lyrical drama as a gritty action movie, and a modern western too, Logan has the grace to use the modern quirk of franchise and universe storytelling to really consider questions of morality and faded celebrity. It also gives Jackman and Patrick Stewart a hell of a wake by revealing new dimensions to both of their decades-long performances via the introduction of fatherhood and old age. Thor Ragnarok. After continuing the search for hot indie talent to helm their big superhero blockbusters in the latter half of the 2010s, Marvel Studios must have realized they'd hit the jackpot after they hired What We Do in the Shadows and Eagle vs. Shark director Taika Waititi to helm the third entry in their flailing Thor franchise. Thor Ragnarok turned out to be an unexpected treat, not only for those who had grown up watching movies from Waititi's bespoke bag of influences, but for frustrated Thor fans who had been waiting years for Marvel to truly make the God of Thunder just work as the star of his own movies. Harnessing Chris Hemsworth's natural comedic talent, Marvel finally found a way to balance Thor's fantasy elements with his MCU journey in Thor Ragnarok, by killing his father, taking away his hammer, muddying his notion of what family legacy is, annihilating Asgard, and even ripping out one of his eyes. All of which begs the question, who is Thor without all the things that make him Thor? Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse. Directed by the powerhouse team of Bob Paraschetti, Peter Ramsey, and Rodney Rothman, this sublime animated feature film arguably did more to create a whole new generation of Spider fans in 117 joy-packed minutes than all the live-action movies put together. Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse is an origin story for Miles Morales, who gets bitten by a radioactive spider, tumbles into the multiverse, and has to team up with superheroes from other dimensions to take down mad scientist Olivia Octavius and the Kingpin. Who knew that a Spider-Man movie focusing on Miles would turn out to be the best Spider-Man movie of all time? Well, those of us who are already following the ongoing adventures of Marvel's web-slinger for starters. Luckily, 21 Jump Street directors Phil Lord and Christopher Miller also happen to be huge fans, because when they signed on to shepherd Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse into existence for Sony, it was on the condition that Mr. Morales be front and center. The result? A perfect cinematic superhero experience. Avengers Endgame. In this era where it seems most franchises, especially superhero ones, are increasingly reliant on fan service, it's easy, sometimes even appropriate, to ask yourself when it's being deployed wisely. But make no mistake, Avengers Endgame is the very best kind of fan service. And why is that? Because every franchise callback, every cheer-worthy moment, every Marvel Comics Easter egg was not only effortlessly executed, it was thoughtfully earned, and it was all done with an eye on neatly wrapping up some of the franchise's most important storylines. Marvel Studios delivered a reward for every single audience member who made it through the 21 films that led up to it. Far more than just a franchise novelty, Endgame is packed to the rafters with genuine emotional stakes to match its cosmic scope and timeline-bending plot. It's so successful that one wonders if Marvel, or any studio, will ever be able to deliver a capstone this ambitious ever again, or if they should even try. The Dark Knight. Yes, the top of this list is The Dark Knight. Could it be anything else? Whether fair or not, before The Dark Knight's release, the superhero genre was largely seen by the industry as kids' table stuff. Christopher Nolan obliterated those limited expectations and produced a crime epic as sweeping and searing as any in its decade, and one which did a better job of talking about the anxieties of the Bush years than actual movies based on the War on Terror. And it did all this with a man dressed up like a bat punching a terrorist in clown makeup. What unforgettable makeup it was, too, that Heath Ledger smeared across his own face in a turn which remains electrifying to witness 14 years later. Barely recognizable beneath the scars and that Tom Waits drawl, Ledger blends rockstar swagger with genuine nihilistic chill. Yet the movie is more than just his mythologized performance. The Dark Knight is perhaps the one truly great American film on this list, in which a stacked ensemble, including a character-defining second go at the Batman by Christian Bale, Gary Oldman, Michael Caine, and the film's tragic soul Aaron Eckhart as Harvey Dent, stare into the dark and find something both grim and exhilarating climbing out. The Dark Knight remains a transcendent experience, drifting between the aspirations we invest in the superhero fantasy and the nightmares we'd like them to banish. Did your favorite superhero movie make the list? Do you agree with the rankings? Let us know in the comments.